Eric from New Jersey, doing well. How about you?
Not too bad. So yeah, I wanted to chat about this whole nonsense with like RFK Jr. and Hotez and Rogan and all, this whole, idiocy.
Sure.
And, I thought, as Ben Burgess, our friend, wrote an interesting piece in the Daily Beast. I don't know if you guys caught that, where he kind of argued in favor that like Hotez should do it. I think, Sam made a good point that it would be ridiculous for him to do it. And I kind of understand where you guys are coming from too. I have a little bit of a different perspective where I don't necessarily agree with either point. And I think more important than whether or not he does this one narrow act, I think there's a broader point to be made about how people who, not even necessarily on the left, but just the pro-science, good faith attempts to get to the truth side should engage with like fundamentalists, like right-wing fundamentalists.
Mm-hmm.
And excuse me, and just basically, before you even get to the Hotez thing, I think you guys did a really good job of breaking down and debunking a lot of the claims that RFK Jr. made on Rogan. To just briefly touch upon that, I really kind of want to defend some of my colleagues in the scientific community who did a lot of hard work evaluating a lot of different drugs to see if they would work and demonstrating that some of them didn't. And the idea that they were basically deployed by the biopharmaceutical industry to design these things to fail, and that, first of all, if you're going to make that claim, you would actually have to acknowledge that they did actually demonstrate benefit of some pretty cheap drugs. And they made, there was just a paper published in Lancet about an old diabetes drug. If their job were to do that, then you would have to contend with why they just picked your drug to do it to. And I think it comes down to you guys are just mad that you were wrong.
Right.
As opposed to there's any, And the other thing
and
is,
they're trying to create this alternative narrative for monetization, for views, and people are desperate to feel like they're smarter than the rest of society, and that's the kind of impulse that Rogan and RFK Jr. and the people that are on that side feed.
Exactly. And the notion that capital interests in general are just all unanimously lined up to just destroy generic drugs because it would get in the way of pharma profits for vaccines and antivirals. I'm sorry, but I'm willing to buy the argument that maybe big pharma wouldn't be so thrilled if some really inexpensive drug would maybe obviate some of these expensive antivirals, but the mainstream media and the oligarch class and capital interests in general, they want everyone back to work. So if there were a drug that genuinely would be able to do that for very cheap that everyone could take, that position would be everyone take this stuff and get the hell back to the office. So I would reject the claim that all these capital interests are all just, lined up against it. It's just kind of absurd on its face.
Yeah.
And so that,
I mean, Eric, the thing that I really bugs me about this is people act like it's some sort of narrow disagreement about stats, but what they're suggesting is a mass conspiracy among such a widespread number of health professionals that it's it's a brain poison. You're literally turning people off of the whole idea of medicine, and of course we need to decommodify medicine and get it out of the hands of profit seeking and stuff like that. That's so obvious. But this is just this that it rebounds so easily to alternative medicine, which by the way is like pharma but not regulated. The same incentives is just it's such a perversion, and it's so disgusting that this is where we're at after a virus that killed over 1 million people.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's a pseudo-populist agenda to try to claim, because vaccines out of any biopharmaceutical intervention are basically you get the most good societal good out of them for the lowest cost, risks, and burdens. And the fact is that the foundation of these developments is paid for by public funded research, meaning, we should be fighting to get this equitable for everyone, not propping up an industry that's the anti-vaccine industry is a profitable industry. It's intricate, it's widespread. They have political action committees, multi-level marketing. It's a gigantic industry, and to trying to convince people to abstain from something that is of societal good, there's nothing populist about that. So anyway, little tangent before I got to the main point I want to make, which is the one issue I guess I have with the thing with Hotez is the kind of like babe in the woods routine of like, oh, I'm a scientist. Why are they goading me into debating? Like, one of the reasons I deeply admire Peter Hotez is he has written extensively about how scientists have to start taking on the anti-science industry. And I think, like, in this one narrow context, do I think he should go on and like have a debate with RFK? Well, no. I mean, if we're defining a debate as we have a moderator, like what they do with presidential candidates, or a Politicon, where you have a moderator and two candidates who each get to say their piece and respond to questions, and you have a minute to rebut, that would be stupid. There's absolutely no way that Peter Hotez should agree to that. However, what I have seen with people who are very prominent and very prolific anti-science, like Kirsch, who you guys have covered on your show, he tried to goad me into me and a colleague of mine who is a vaccine scientist who was involved in the Pfizer clinical trials, to debate him and his cadre about their claim that the vaccines killed more than 100,000 people, and we were supposed to have a debate with them about it. And I've watched some of these other like anti-science clowns and how they conduct themselves. And the bottom line is, it is important to get out there and counter this stuff and not allow them to go on gigantic platforms and spew all their stuff in front of an audience that's just not equipped to take on their claims. You have Joe Rogan, who just has a jar of mayonnaise where a functioning brain should be, who is in no way equipped to do this. But what I've seen done, and what I've offered myself, and what somebody like Hotez or wherever, or even if it's somebody on the left who's going to go take on Matt Walsh about trans issues, or like whatever, whether it's, I don't know, Josh Fox going on to debate, Tucker Carlson about climate change, like whatever it is, the bottom line is when you're going up against someone who's anti-science, the only thing that you should do is tell them, look, you have made a series of claims. These claims are contrary to the entire scientific community, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to try to defend these claims, and I am going to do my best to try and pick those claims apart with evidence. And we're not going to do a Gish Gallop. We're not going to jump into meta conversation about how many times Big Pharma has been sued or whether I've taken money from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. No, we're going to go through your specific claims. You're going to show me your evidence. We're going to appraise it bit by bit, and either we're not going to go on to the next point until you've either conceded that this claim is not based on evidence, or I failed to produce it. And the most important thing about this, and again, like whether Emma, you're going to go on Tim's show and you guys are going to debate anything where someone would have to cite academic research, you have, with these right-wing types, you have to do a pre-debate data exchange, meaning any piece of scholarly work that I'm going to cite, I will put into a document and send it to you ahead of time, and vice versa. Because what these guys do is they misuse scholarly work. They cite bad studies. They miscite good studies. They cite second-party commentary on maybe reasonable studies, which basically don't accurately describe what the research actually did. And unless you have an extremely intricate knowledge of not only the good but the bad academic studies that are commonly cited in those spaces, it's almost impossible to be able to debunk those things in real time. And you can end up kind of looking bad in debate because somebody says, oh, this reputable journal said you're wrong. And if you don't happen to know why that's not the case. So I would never, ever agree to go on with any kind of fundamentalist about any scientific topic unless they agreed to send me a document with every source they're going to describe in their argument ahead of time so I can go through them. Or if I'm someone that's not equipped to appraise that literature, maybe enlist some help of experts to help me do it. Like with the trans thing, there was a recent study that came out where the authors claimed that they identified like 160,000 people that were the victims of acute onset gender dysphoria. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that theory.
Yeah, I'm not.
No.
So the acute onset gender dysphoria theory is the idea that the reason there's an increasing number of people who are identifying and coming out as transgender, not that it's because it's just widening social acceptance, which is really the likely scenario.
It's a mind virus.
They're claiming that it's basically like a mind virus. Yeah, exactly. It's basically peer pressure. It's becoming a cool thing, and it's basically exerting stress on people, and it's making them abruptly adopt this. And like, basically, this got published in an index peer-reviewed journal a study where the conclusion was, yeah, we've identified like 160-something thousand cases of this. Well, guess what? That study's been retracted, and it never should have been published in the first place. But if you're going up against a Michael Knowles or one of these other dipshits, and you don't know that, and they cite that study, that's very hard. Or like,
that they also probably do know that sometimes, that they do know that the study has been revoked or debunked, but they still cite it because they know that their audience doesn't know. Yes.
Of course, yeah. Or, getting back to vaccines, there was an abstract published in Circulation, which is a subsidiary of the American Heart Association, where this guy, Stephen Gundry, he's that crank that sells all those supplements on late night commercials. And he basically published an abstract claiming that the vaccines were going to increase people's risks of having like heart attacks and major cardiovascular adverse events over the next 5 years. And of course, this got widely distributed among the anti-vaccine community. This is a reputable journal, major claim. Well, if you're going up and you're trying to debate somebody like RFK who's going to cite that and you don't happen to know, well, they basically used a proprietary little scoring method of blood tests that haven't been validated in any clinical setting, and they didn't use a control group, and the journal has since forced them to change all their language around. You won't know that unless you had a chance to review. So what I would just say on a more broad point is you cannot get involved with debate on any kind of scholarly, academic, or scientific work with fundamentalists unless you know what they're going to cite ahead of time.
I hear you.
Thanks,
All
Eric.
right. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate the call. Good advice.
Yeah, no problem.